And welcome back to another episode of the On the Sideline podcast with Jackson and Kyle. I am joined here, as always, by the man whose internet search history may or may not be filled with mac and cheese recipes. Kyle, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I hope everyone had a fantastic Thanksgiving outside of the driving around this country. I did. So, good holiday overall. How was your holiday?
So just to be clear, you hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving outside of the driving you had to do. You think that
Yes,
the big burden on all of us, all of our viewers, that
yes.
you had to drive around for a while.
Everyone is as exhausted as I am after all this driving. So I hope they all endured it with me.
Okay, yes. Well, everyone could rest easy knowing Kyle is okay after a lot of driving. Yes. Thanksgiving, you enjoy your favorite holiday, Kyle.
Always. I had
Hmm.
the best thing about getting married is that you get two holidays. So I get the holiday with her family and I get the holiday with my family. So I had two
Hmm.
plates of Thanksgiving. It was delicious. I had 2 days worth of leftovers. That was also delicious. So you know, good things happening here in the household.
Yeah, I'm glad you have that side because I think some people would say that's. I think there's a group of people that might say that's the worst thing about getting married is you have two families. So it's glad to see that you have the other way.
Well, there's definitely some negatives to it, but I don't listen to a lot of people. So,
Uh-huh.
I can just eat extra turkey.
Well, the best part about Thanksgiving too is like you can be like, oh, it's Thanksgiving football. Let's we might as well turn the games on because it's part of the holiday. It's great. Well done by the NFL to make that a part of the holiday. They knocked it out of the park.
I mean, it continues to be an elite holiday. I'll go to my deathbed with this elite holiday Thanksgiving.
Yes. All right. Well, enough rambling. Let's get into the week 12 of football. It's really going along here. We're gonna, as always, start off with the Sunday night game. We had a game here, Kyle. It was an odd game. There was definitely some bizarre stuff to this one. The Baltimore Ravens threw 4 interceptions. The Cleveland Browns lost 2 fumbles at the end. The Ravens win 16-10. What were your thoughts on this Sunday night game?
This game was pretty dumb. I'm not gonna
Hmm.
lie. No, I mean it was certainly entertaining and laughable at times, but it definitely was not. They're definitely not putting this in the Hall of Fame for like perfect quarterback play by any means, because both of these guys I thought struggled throughout the game. Um, I mean, the Baker chatter is just going to get louder and louder. I thought he put a couple drives together there towards the end, but at the same time, I mean, it just isn't good enough. So he wasn't good enough in this game. And I mean, everything I saw about the Browns, like there was one play I think towards the end of the first half. There was like 12 seconds to go, and the Browns spread everybody out 5 wide. 12 seconds to go in the half. The Ravens had a cover zero blitz, just a zero blitz, basically sending everyone at him. And I'm just like, they don't care at all what Baker Mayfield does. They are not
Hmm.
scared at all at this guy dropping back to pass, and it showed in this game because he was not ready to play. The Browns offense could not throw the ball downfield, and attack this Ravens defense, which, while it has improved the last couple of weeks, had been kind of beaten through the air a few times this season.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't think Mayfield was that bad in this one. I think that he's had his bad weeks, and obviously quarterback, you're going to get the entire head of the criticism here. I thought there was a lot of issues with this Browns team. Like basically, what I mean is there had been weeks in the past where I said Case Keenum would give them a better chance to win than Baker Mayfield is currently doing. I didn't feel that way this week. I mean, he outperformed Jarvis Landry at the quarterback position. You got that going for you. But I think that he definitely didn't elevate the team in any way in a game where Lamar Jackson was trying to hand Cleveland the game at any
Yeah.
opportunity he could. Outside of Lamar still had his flashes. He still showed that he was Lamar at times, but this was maybe his worst game of his career, and you still win.
Yeah, I mean that's the one thing you take away from this game and say, "Hey, great job by the Ravens." Since they pulled this out, the defense did really good. And despite all of the turnovers, they managed to continue to get stops, because that was the big thing. Is like, scoring 10 points off of 4 turnover, or getting 4 turnovers and scoring 10 points for the game. I mean, that's pretty pathetic showing. That's really
Hmm.
that's just a bad showing overall. You have short fields on a lot of those situations too, and just couldn't get it done. Obviously, the turnover added to it too, giving the ball right back. But yeah, I mean, It was kind of a weird game. I still think the Ravens are good. They
Kind of.
definitely didn't. I mean, it was a very weird game. I still think the Ravens are good. They definitely didn't show it this week, but I still think they beat a decent football team. So you get the win.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is one of those games where it's like the Ravens did not play up to their potential whatsoever, and they still find a way to get a win. So I don't think you feel mad about it if you're a Ravens fan. I think you say, okay, it's unfortunate that we know that we can play this poorly, but at least we found a way to win the football game at the end of the day. And it's like Lamar's not going to throw the ball directly to the opposing team 4 times. I mean, you're going to have better things go your way than that. So I definitely wouldn't be concerned at all. I think the Ravens are good. And also, I have to say this, Kyle. Mark Andrews, I think, has gotten underrated. He's a really good receiving tight end, and he had an incredible catch in this one. But he's having a great season. He's really been underreported, I think, because we kind of all realize he's good. But I think he's an elite tight end.
Yeah, he's been really good this year. I think didn't he have a stretch? Was it last year that he had like a drop stretch, and then everyone kind of wrote him off as like, oh, he's not as good as the top tier guys. And then he's
Hmm.
showing once again he's just as good as all those guys. So yeah, I mean he definitely belongs in the conversation. I mean he's not the best tight end in the NFL, but he's still a very good tight end, a very serviceable. I mean he's their best option and through the passing game still.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, last year he was literally their option. So like that's what made it a little bit
Yeah.
difficult. Was like he was. It's like okay, Mark Andrews isn't open. Well, we tried.
Yeah, and I still feel like even in this game, there's points where it's like, I mean, even in those interceptions, they were bad throws.
Hmm.
You blame Lamar for those because they were bad throws, but it's still part of the Ravens offense where you're like, I mean, there's just a lot of plays where guys don't get open. It's like Lamar's almost as good, unless Lamar can find a way to rip it off for a 20-yard run. It just seems like there's times where it's like, okay, well, I better just throw this ball into the ground. And in this one, he threw interceptions.
Yeah. And yeah, I think that's fair. Also, something we should mention is Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah in this one, where I think the theory I didn't hear it until right now, but kind of a theory of a big part of why they drafted him was because they're in the same division as with Lamar, which I mean, I think they drafted him because it was the second round and most people had a first round grade on him. But I think that, that aspect, having someone who is a great athlete who can kind of match up with Lamar a little bit. No one can match up altogether. That was a big aspect. Also, Myles Garrett taking on 3 guys and still getting a sack. That was cool.
Yeah, he had a couple pretty good plays in this one. I mean,
Hmm.
this was also peak Chris Collinsworth. There's
Hmm.
just parts of this game where he's like he can't even like put words together. He's just like
Hmm.
and he's just
Yeah.
saying that through the broadcast. And one of them was he also ran down Lamar on a play.
Hmm.
And I mean, he had some pretty jaw dropping plays. Him and Clowney, I thought, did pretty well in this game, even if they don't have huge sack numbers. I thought they had a pretty good game overall. I mean, good job from the Browns defense.
Yeah, I thought it was funny. Clowney kept disrupting plays and kept getting juked out, and it's like, of course, this would happen. Like, of course, Clowney's never going to actually touch Lamar Jackson because Clowney's a bull. He can run in one direction and gets there immediately. But in second, there's even any slight movement, he can't get there. It's like, of course, Lamar's going to find a way out of that. But also, you're disrupting plays, so it's like you're adding value here. Very fun there.
Yeah. No, I mean I agree. He's definitely a one trick pony, but
Hmm.
he
It's a
did
good
manage to
trick.
make it. Yeah, I mean when you're that physically gifted, it works.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah. So how do I guess any final thoughts to wrap up this game? I think for me, I would say obviously Cleveland been a very disappointing had a very disappointing stretch from here on out. They play the Ravens in their next game, which is not next week but a week after. They have a bye week and then the Ravens. I don't know if I've ever seen that before, where you play the same team back to back weeks. So that's very fun. We're going to see this again in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I guess the only thing I'm taking away, it's going to be a theme for this week once again, is that
Hmm.
the AFC just gets tighter and tighter. Ravens are
Hmm.
now the 1 seed with what is it, 8-3 record, 7-3 record,
Yeah,
7-3,
8-3.
8-3. That's right. Okay,
Hmm. Yes.
cool.
Overlap 618 says Rage. I bet the house on the Browns over 10.5 wins preseason based on your rankings, and I am in big trouble. Hey, don't give up hope. Still possible.
They can still hit 10 wins. Doesn't seem like Overlap's missing out on too much money, though. I think he'll be okay.
Yeah, really. And so, yeah, if you bet the house, what one of your many houses you bet on on that one?
Yeah. Yeah. Good to see you,
Yeah.
Overlap.
Yes, again, thank you again to our sponsor, Overlap, single-handedly putting this podcast together.
Yeah. Let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on. Okay, so I think let's go to. I think this is the biggest story of the week, Kyle. The Buccaneers at Colts. This was, even from an objective standpoint, an awesome game. I mean, this was back and forth. Both teams, the Buccaneers started off slow, but really had some success late. The halfback who had the better numbers in this one ended up being Leonard Fournette. I don't know who had that on their bingo card going in. And your guy, Rob Gronkowski, ends up with a huge game. Obviously, as a Buccaneers fan, the way I see this game, it's like, okay, we got very lucky with all of these turnovers. I mean, 3 fumbles lost by the Colts, another 2 picks. Like, that's not going to happen ever. So definitely, I felt very lucky that we got fortunate in that regard. Although a couple tough breaks our own way, but definitely we won the luck battle there. I think that the Colts, again, it's the scheme that's given Tampa Bay some trouble. I'm happy we were able to get some stuff done, at least for the Colts. I think this is actually it's a quality loss if you're into that kind of thing. They at least show that they have some fight against a really good team.
Quality loss, so they're still in the college football playoff conversation.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was kind of a weird game because Carson Wentz came out like a man on fire to start this game, and then, like you said, it really came down to the turnovers in the second half. It's won this game. I mean, I still think Tampa was in the game and they could have easily won, but I mean, the turnover certainly helped make that an easier feat. So they went down and got that happen. So after all the Jonathan Taylor talk last week, has Leonard Fournette now entered the NFL MVP conversation?
Yes, I think so. I think so. Yes.
I'm just gonna troll everyone. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, he was fantastic in this game. 5.9 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns, had a touchdown through the air. Rob Gronkowski was awesome in this game. They're covering the Colts receivers, but part of the thing with beating that 2 deep safety look is you're hitting your tight ends and you're hitting your running back, and they're getting big chunk plays out of it. And that's exactly what Tampa did in the second half to move the ball a little bit.
Yeah. Some people said, the Colts' best player is their running back, but they insist on throwing the ball, shaking my head. That's not how I saw it. For one thing, the Colts had one drive where Jonathan Taylor was good, and that was the final drive.
Mm-hmm.
So, but outside of that, they were running into a wall consistently. They weren't getting success consistently through the ground. And Tampa Bay was trying to stop the run, which I didn't really like, although you kind of understood why in that final drive when they finally started playing coverage and Jonathan Taylor ran all over him. It was kind of like, okay, maybe you know what you're doing better than I do. But I thought that, I think really what this came down to is Tampa Bay is a hard team to run on. And even if you're an elite running team, it's hard to run on Vita Vea. That completely changes stuff. Also overlap. Okay, I can make up my losses by Pats Bucks Super Bowl, my 4th week in a row calling for Jackson Penguin suit. You heard it here first. All right, there you go. Great overlap. Kyle, say something related to what I said about the game.
Yeah, so I mean, even then, the plan was working. They were throwing the ball really well to start this game.
Yeah.
The interception, the interception that Winfield had, I felt like it was just a great Winfield play. He had a huge height advantage on the play in the matchup. He liked the matchup and he put the ball in a spot for his receiver to go up and have a chance at it. Winfield just made a better play on it and got the ball. And I mean, you could argue it was pass interference. I didn't really think it was defensive pass interference. I thought Winfield just had the angle. So I mean, I didn't really think Wentz was that bad in this game. It just kind of, happened that way that a couple turnovers bounced against the Colts in this one. Sometimes that kind of happens.
Yeah. Based Zuckerberg says, talk about the missing tooth. Yeah, that was wild. Vita Vea lost a tooth in this one, and then was just laughing about it. I'm like, that's not how you should be behaving after you lose a tooth, is to just find it funny.
Different breed, man.
Although, I guess so.
There's going to be a hockey fan in the chat saying, you don't know anything.
I mean, I don't think that they should be. I think that as a whole, if your sport causes people to lose teeth, I think that's a fault in your sport. I think that you need to then fix that sport so that people aren't consistently losing teeth.
Well, yeah, they have this brilliant concept called mouth guards. Was he wearing one?
I don't believe so. I think, I believe that's the reason.
Yeah. $1 billion idea I have. Let's put guards in people's mouths so they don't lose their teeth.
Yeah. I think I heard he just doesn't like wearing it. It's like, okay, well, yeah, well, I think you should also not like getting your teeth knocked out.
Well, he can afford false teeth. He's fine. He probably has good dental.
So.
I don't
I
know.
guess so. I don't know. I feel like if I was an NFL player, I would wear a mouth guard.
Yeah, I mean, that's a safe assumption. I mean, if I was
Uh-huh.
an NFL player, I'd have like 30 layers of padding on. I wouldn't just have the shoulder pads and helmet. I would have like pillows wrapped around me so I don't feel anything.
Yeah. Also, Bruce Arians after said he has like 30 more, so who cares? Which is like a wild thing to say about someone who lost a teeth playing a game that you had coached. He's got 30 more. He's fine. Like okay, wait a second. Shouldn't you like have some empathy for a guy who lost his tooth?
Yeah. Like I said, the dental's there though. He's okay. He's in
I
good
guess
shape.
so. Yeah, you're right. I guess maybe it's just a different world. Wild game though, very fun. Let's move on. Let's go. Let's go from my team to your team. Why don't we? Kyle, how
Uh,
you feeling? Patriots blowing out the Titans. We thought this would be a good matchup for him. I'll let you take the floor.
yeah, I mean, I'm gonna try and I'll be objective about this because I think the thing is as my expectations raise for the Patriots, I want to see the performance get better and better each week because I think it can get better. And while at times I thought the performance was better in this game, I thought they made it. I thought they were kind of sloppy at large parts of this. I thought Tennessee shouldn't have been in this game at halftime. Tennessee moved the ball pretty well. They shortened the game with the possessions. They had that one really long possession that took out a lot of this game and made things interesting. But the Patriots struggle to stop the run. And this run defense is weird because on a per play basis, it's been pretty good this year. But they also get torched at times throughout all these games. And I think a lot of it is just like I think when the Patriots scheme against run offenses, they do okay. Like they did pretty good against Dallas and they did pretty good against Christian McCaffrey. But when they're not schemed against a run offense, they struggle a lot more, it seems like. And in this game, they definitely struggled, not really taking the run offense seriously without Derrick Henry on the field. And they had some big chunk plays out of it. I didn't think Tannehill was really that great in this game. I thought he was okay, but at the same time, he had some. He could have thrown a few more interceptions, I thought, in this game.
Hmm.
Van Noy dropped one basically right in his mitts. So I thought the Bass defense did pretty good again in this game, which they should have with Jones and Brown out. I thought the offense, found a rhythm here and there. I thought they put together some good things. They just couldn't finish drive, and I think that might be the one thing that we're looking at this Patriots team. That if they lose a playoff game this year, like to an early playoff game this year, you're looking at a team that's going into this week. They were 11th in red zone appearances, and it was 18th in red zone touchdown efficiency. So I mean, you got to finish drives in the red zone. That's the big thing. And it's just like it was a missed touchdown pass here. Mike Jones missed Hunter Henry. A situation where they threw 5 straight passes to get down to the 8-yard line and then run the ball on first and second and goal, and then force yourself into a passing situation on third and goal. Just weird things like that didn't result in points. That I do think that they got to clean some of that stuff up.
I get what you're saying. Isn't the flip side? You beat the team that was the number one seed in the AFC 36-13. So maybe this was an all right game.
I think you can feel good about that, sure, but at the same
Hmm.
time, like, are we evaluating this Tennessee Titans team as the same Titans team that was the one seed in the AFC?
Yeah,
Because
no, that's fair. Hmm.
I don't think I can evaluate this Titans team as the same. And unfortunately for them, I mean, this is getting close to maybe it's going to become a lost season because these guys, I mean, there's nobody on the field for this team. Who was their best player was Dontrell Hilliard.
Hmm.
And then Dante Foreman, who had the big fumble too. So I mean, there's just not enough guys with this Titans team. So I think it's too tough. But I mean, kudos to the Pats. They got the win. They're the 2 seed in the AFC. They're keeping up with Buffalo, and they're going to make these next few weeks interesting. So you got the win. You did exactly what you had to do, and you came and beat up a team that's beaten up just on the sideline. There's no guys.
Yeah. Well, the nice thing the Titans have is their schedule gets very easy. We
Hmm.
keep talking about this. Like their last 5 games, you have they play the Jaguars, the Steelers. You do play the 49ers, who we'll get into that. They seem solid. But then you have the Dolphins, who again maybe they're good. I don't know. I don't think so. And then the Texans. So they should have at least a few more wins in there. They're going to make the playoffs. It would be like a huge collapse for that to go away. But I also do kind of get your point, even though it does seem kind of silly to say, yeah, we won by 23, but it wasn't their best game. But like there was some truth to that with the turnovers being 4-0. Like, okay, that's going to make the game kind of lopsided. I think that there were some breaks that went New England's way, which kind of is part of why that lopsided score happens. But also, I think you can argue the flip side of like that long touchdown at the end of the half. Like that was something that went the other way. So I don't know. I think this is a really good win for the Patriots against the team that I do think is still pretty good. I mean, you held Ryan Tannehill to 93 passing yards.
Yeah.
There was two halfbacks in this game for Tennessee that had more yards than Ryan Tannehill did.
Yeah. I mean that was definitely a good performance because, like I said, they didn't really seem to worry about the running game for Tennessee, but they definitely managed themselves in the passing game, and they took out Ryan Tannehill in this game, and they really wanted to limit what he could do, throwing the ball downfield. I thought you take a lot of positives away from that. I just think I was looking at this game and it was 19-13 at one point, and then it's like the Titans forgot to tackle Kendrick Bourne and he ran for a touchdown. It's like he caught the ball and it's like, oh wait, we're supposed to actually put him down on the ground. And he just kept running for the touchdown. And then that's what kind of put the game away. But yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm sounding like this was a terrible game for the Patriots. They played well. They did fine. They did really good. They did good in this game, and they're still going to be a good team. I think there's things though that as I'm looking at this team is like, could this team win the AFC, which I think it's possible of doing this year? That, they got to finish in the red zone. They got to clean up the run defense, stuff like that.
Yeah. TJ Levy in the chat saying Kyle is talking like they lost the game. Yeah, I do feel like a bit. I was expecting a bit more excitement when I put this at number 3. I was expecting some mac and cheese talk, some Patriots are back talk. I guess the Patriots are truly back, where you're blowing out a good team and saying, "Hey, we got to improve on stuff."
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I have expectations that this team can win the AFC. I thought Mac was good in this game. I was pleased once again with his performance. Outside of the miss Hunter Henry touchdown, I mean, it was basically a flawless game out of him. So I mean, there's a lot to good take from this. I'm just, my bar has risen for this Patriots team. I think that's where I'm at.
Yeah, all right. No more talking about your bar rising. Let's move on to another game. Let's go to how about Rams at Packers. This was kind of the game that we were all looking forward to seeing heading into the week, and it was for a decent chunk of it. It was looking like it was living up to the hype. Although then a pick six kind of really sealed the deal. Rasul Douglas pick six, technically a 1-score game. Packers win by 8, but they led by a lot more, although you do wonder without that pick six what exactly happened. We saw an Odell Beckham sighting with a long touchdown by him, but as a whole, the Packers are very good, and I thought Rodgers played very well. I thought A.J. Dillon did a lot better than his numbers would suggest, and even Randall Cobb, although he did end up leaving with an injury, had a good game. Devontae Adams, of course, 100 yards, whatever. That's a fine game for him. Very good win for the Packers.
Yeah, this was a game that it's like every time I looked up at it, it was like, oh, the Packers are crushing the Rams. But then it's like, oh, wait, they're winning by 11 points. That's what I felt like the entire set, like late in the game. I thought the Rams did fine, but at the same time, there was still some sloppiness to this game. You don't want to have a stat that says, what is it, 3 straight games with the pick six now? That's a bad stat to be a part. Yeah, that's a bad stat to be a part of if you're Matthew Stafford. So, this is, I think, I don't know. Like, it's so weird because this Rams team is so like they're still adding pieces to this team. So it's like, how do you properly evaluate this team at this point in the season? Are we just going to kind of say, hey, let's see what this team looks like in the playoffs and be okay with that? Because, I mean, I still think this team makes the playoffs, but eventually you're going to have to start winning games with this group.
Yeah, I think so as well. And even when you do look at their schedule, and it's not an easy schedule. I mean, they play Jacksonville next week, but then you have Arizona, Seattle, who I guess they stink, so that might be good. Although, again, like how much do they stink? You don't have the Vikings, the Ravens, and then the 49ers to end the season. So it's not out of the question they might only win like 2 or 3 of those games. However, I still think that would be enough to get them into postseason, given the way the NFC has shaken out so far. Really what this comes down to for me is Matthew Stafford has to start playing better. And it's not just the pick sixes. It's he's missing throws. This is kind of what we thought we saw at the beginning of the season was, hey, Matt Stafford, sure, guys are getting schemed open, but he's hitting them. He's making the correct reads. He's helping guys get more open. He hasn't been playing great football. And we can all sit here and talk about the Packers offense and Aaron Rodgers, and we should. I thought the Packers offense played well. But like the Rams had 17 points through 3 quarters in this. Like they need to start putting up more points if they're really going to be taken seriously and win the if they're going to win a Super Bowl, which is the expectation for this team, they have to have a more consistent offense. In these past few weeks, it just hasn't been that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like I don't know. It feels like is it targeting Cup too much? Is that the problem? It
I
feels
don't
like
think
sometimes it
so.
is.
I don't think so. It's possible, but I mean, we should mention like part of what's kind of gone down is when Robert Woods has gone down. Like that has been an element of it. It hasn't been
Yeah.
exactly that way, but like that is, losing Robert Woods does hurt. And Odell Beckham Jr. just, he's not quite got that chemistry down, which is, I guess, is starting to become a trend with Odell. How great of chemistry did Eli Manning have with all of his players that he was able to get it with Odell?
Well, you got it with Plexico Burris too, who also
Yeah.
wasn't different situation altogether. But yeah, I mean, I don't know because I mean that pick six was really just staring at Cooper Cup, and they got the corner jumped the route.
hmm Right.
So, I mean, I just feel like sometimes it's way too Cup dependent, especially from Stafford. So it's I don't know. I thought the Odell Beckham touchdown was a good throw, and Beckham obviously got some release there, and that was a good play. But I mean, like I said, it's tough to evaluate what I think of this Rams team until I feel like there's a little bit of a rhythm established with everybody on this team now.
Yeah. Okay. Here's what I want to do. We did a top 10 AFC draft. We don't have to do like that with the NFC, but I'm interested. We kind of have it's like the top 5 teams that we've kind of talked about since like week 3 or 4 of this season. Of Dallas, yeah, we'll do the Cowboys, the Cardinals, the Rams, the Packers, and the Buccaneers are the 5 teams. If you had to power rank those 5 teams, where would you go?
Power rank the top five in the NFC. I would go Tampa, Green Bay. Um, I need to pull up the list now.
It's Arizona, Dallas, and the Rams are the other 3.
Yeah, I would go Tampa, Green Bay, Arizona, Rams, Cowboys.
Interesting. I think I would go Arizona 1. I think that they've been the most impressive to me so far this season.
And I wouldn't blame you. I mean, I
hmm Those
part
3, I think that there used to be a gap of 5. I think there's now a group of 3 that are the real threats in the NFC. It's the Buccaneers, the Packers, and the Cardinals.
Yeah, I think I agree with that.
hmm
I think I agree that the top 3 feel better. I think
hmm
the thing is like there's probably some preconceived bias when it comes to Tampa and Green Bay because it's
hmm
like, I've seen those 2 guys be pretty good before in the playoffs. So,
Yeah.
I think I can lean on that and say, hey, I kind of trust those guys. Not that I don't believe in Kyler Murray as a gifted and super talented player and he's going to be fine. It's
hmm
just like we haven't seen Arizona in the playoffs yet. And I think that's a big deal, which is why I have them 3. But I think they're in the conversation with those 2 teams.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. Also, it'd be fascinating to see who gets that 1 seed. I think if I had to rank it, I would probably say Arizona, but Green Bay's right there as well. They have a bit of their schedule gets easier now. They've beaten the Rams, so fun stuff with these teams. Let's move on. Let's go to another game here. Let's go to where are the let's go with Vikings 49ers here. This is another one of those games, right, where it's like Kirk Cousins, okay, you take out his worst 3 plays and he looks fantastic, but those worst 3 players are bad. And the issue is with Cousins, it's not like he's doing a lot of playmaking, right? It's not like he's running around
Mhm.
and adding a lot of value in other ways. So for Cousins to have a great game, he can't make these mistakes. One of his worst mistakes, lining up behind a guard, which caused on a 4th down, which resulted in a timeout getting used. That's never fantastic. Cousins, both quarterbacks had a not great interception in this one. And as a whole, I thought both offenses still did solid here, but
Yeah.
there was, turnovers are a real thing. You get an extra turnover, the 49ers did, so that helped them and was kind of the difference along with a 4th down field conversion on a play where maybe that could have worked had there been a better throw by Cousins.
Yeah. The whole last timeout thing when he was lining up over the guard, it was a tough look, but I think they would have had to use the timeout anyway because nobody
Probably, yeah.
was lined up and he was running around trying to line everyone up. And that's when he got, was turned around and lined up behind the guard. So it's still a bad look though. It still looks kind of stupid to do that.
It's funny.
Yes. But yes, I completely agree that it was a, you know, it, the Vikings just continue to have these games. I mean, this is their biggest loss of the season, and they lost by 8 points in a game that they could have won on multiple occasions. And it
Mhm.
also came down to, the Dalvin Cook fumble slash injury that was the biggest play of the game. It might be the biggest play of the rest of the Viking season, right? Um, you know, he comes up hurt on that play and also costs the football up, and that results in derailing a drive that was going well for the Vikings. So that was a tough look for the Vikings on that one. Credit to the 49ers, though. They dealt with their own
Mhm.
injuries. Debo Samuel went out in this game. Fred Warner went out in this game, and they still kind of just got the job done. Kyle Shanahan, after all the talk of him being under 500 and all that, just
Right.
continue to scheme up ways to get guys in position. Elijah Mitchell with the big game, and just continues to do, typical Kyle Shanahan things.
That's the thing. Is like, weirdly, like when I was watching this game, I kind of had like a negative bias of like, oh man, why isn't this happening? Why isn't that happening? I think part of that is just the Vikings have just made me frustrated because I feel like they should be better than what they are. They have enough
Mhm.
talent to do so. But the flip side is, I was also watching this game and kind of like, these feel like two playoff teams. This feels like
Yeah.
a playoff caliber game. And you're right. I mean, Debo Samuel is just that guy where it's like, it's never a bad play to get the ball in Debo Samuel's hands. Like that's just never. It seems like every time he touches the ball, it's a good play. Some are great plays, some are like solid plays, but I've never seen. I can't think of a bad play where Debo Samuel touched the ball. It just like doesn't happen. I'm sure there's been examples, but they don't stick out in my head.
I tweeted out that I can't believe Debo Samuel's the best receiver and running back in the NFC West. That seems unfair.
Uh huh.
And the funniest thing about it is people would probably bring up Cooper Cup and DeAndre Hopkins before saying he's not the best running back in the NFC West.
Right.
I mean, every time you're right though. Every time he touches the ball, it turns to the play is golden. So I mean, he's been really good this season. Hopefully, he's back from that injury quickly because they definitely need him going forward. But a good win for the 49ers. And yeah, I do feel like that talent wise, these are definitely two playoff teams. We'll see if the Vikings get there. We continue to say it with this team. We'll see if they can actually get over that line. 49ers feel like they kind of fixed some things. Garoppolo's playing better, and it's working.
Yeah, I like this. Debo Samuel MVP. Here we go. Debo
Yeah.
Samuel MVP.
I mean, at this point, like we're gonna start, naming offensive linemen for MVP.
Justin Tucker for MVP, perhaps. I think Justin Tucker. He's been great.
I mean, you got to put Nick Folk in the conversation too, though.
Hey, wouldn't be the first kicker to win MVP. Fun fact.
Who was the last one?
I forget his name, but there has been a kicker who has won MVP. But I think it was like, if I remember correctly, it was like a shortened season due to like a lockout, and so it was like it was almost like a middle finger type thing. I don't know, very weird. But there has been a kicker who's won MVP.
Didn't what was his name? Otto Graham. Didn't he
Hmm.
kick? So technically, did he win MVP?
I believe so. Although I don't know if that counts because I think we're talking primarily a kicker.
Oh, so only full time kickers.
Right. I don't think you can say Sammy Baugh, was, won MVP as a punter when clearly it was not his punting. That is why he won MVP.
Yeah. Did you see the Scottie Pippen comment where he said Tom Brady couldn't be the best ever because he only plays one position? So is that a huge win for Sammy Baugh being the GOAT?
I mean, I think that like there's a legit argument that Sammy Baugh is the greatest of all time. Like I feel like a very under. Yeah, agree with Scottie Pippen there.
Scottie Pippen bringing out the football takes.
Yeah. Why is he okay, whatever. Let's stay focused. Yeah, and the 49ers look solid. I still just wonder what their ceiling is with Garoppolo, and this is probably why they went out and drafted Trey Lance. But like just having their guys healthy, it's like Brandon Ayuk, Kyle Juszczyk, who can do some things. He had a couple of catches in this one. And then you have obviously George Kittle and Debo Samuel. It's just that like those three options. We always talk about three options. And I meant to mention it in the Tampa Bay game, but that's what you saw there as well. Is once Gronk gets back, the offense looks better. It's like once getting that third option, even if he's not actually getting too many catches, it just makes the whole offense run more smoothly. 49ers looking way better. They're covering better. They're getting open more efficiently as they're getting healthier. So they look good. They look like a playoff team.
Yeah, I came to the realization while watching this game. I used to call Kirk Cousins the White Claw of the NFL,
Hmm.
where if you love him, you overrate him, and if you hate him, you underrate him. He's
Hmm.
sort of upgraded into Jack Daniels. Uh,
Okay.
He's the Jack Daniels of the NFL, where he's all right, I guess, on his own. But when you pair him, when you have the right pairing for Jack Daniels, it's really the perfect. It's a great cocktail. You know, you have a really good Jack and Coke. You know, that's like pairing Kirk Cousins with Thielen and Justin Jefferson. I think Jimmy Garoppolo's inherited the white claw of the NFL from Kirk Cousins as Kirk Cousins got the promotion.
All right. Well, there you go. Good for do you think this game hurt Kirk Cousins' MVP odds?
I mean, if we're going to talk about MVP during every game, yes, I think this hurt his odds slightly, but he's still in the conversation.
Yeah, still on the go. I mean, in fairness, I think we've all always agreed like Kirk Cousins is by no means having an MVP season, but it's just kind of funny that just a Kirk Cousins season has sort of ended him in the MVP odds due to the fact that there's been no clear MVP.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to enter the conversation, I guess. I mean, it's such a if he ever won MVP, like the NFL's canceled. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
There's no statistic you could show me that say Kirk Cousins is the best player in football.
No matter how good he would be, that's like one of those like when you simulate a season of it's like you get mad and you simulate a season. It's like Dwayne Haskins MVP, and you're just like, what? How did this happen? No, this can't be true. It's that stuff.
The Steelers are hoping for that, I guess.
Yeah, hey, couldn't be a lot worse. Let's just go there. Let's use that as a segue. Let's go to Steelers Bengals. This was hilarious. The Steelers are not good at football. We know this. Ben Roethlisberger was a mess. There was, I think, one of my favorite sequences of the season was one Pittsburgh. So Joe Burrow throws an interception. And TJ Watt, aggressively blocks Joe Burrow, we'll say. I'll let you guys give your opinions on what you thought about that. There's this whole hoopla about it. And immediately Roethlisberger just throws a pick six. And it's just like, that's the Steelers of this season in one sequence right there. I thought about this, Kyle. So the last time the Steelers finished last in their division was 1988, 31 years ago. It could happen again this year. This could be the year. Now, Cleveland's 500. They're 500. But this couldn't be the year they finish fourth in their division.
It certainly seems like it. Mm-hmm. Big Ben, I got to say, the Kevin Hart skit, I don't know if you listen to Kevin Hart skits. The Kevin Hart skit where he talks about his grandmother falling, and it's like she falls in slow motion. That's exactly what Ben Roethlisberger does, except he's a professional athlete. Like him falling is the funniest thing on the planet. I mean, I don't understand how it works. I don't understand the physics of it. But anyway, we'll move on from that. The Steelers got torched in this game. Joe Mixon destroyed them. T. Higgins destroyed them. And they didn't have an answer for anything the Bengals were doing offensively. And then their offense had no chance for much of the game until garbage time. I mean, this feels like the end of this Steelers run, this dynasty, right? Like we can finally stick a fork in this team.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think it's fair to call it a dynasty.
Well, this era of Steelers football.
Yeah.
Let's put it
Yeah, the Big Ben era is done. I think even if they start to have success, it's going to be with a new quarterback. Also, Luke Brown in chat. Kyle likes seeing people fall. Yes. I think specifically Ben Roethlisberger, which I think is very different than just saying people in general. Well, I think that's kind of funny. Yeah, I think you can make fun of Roethlisberger for falling. Yeah, I think so. If we're comparing quarterbacks to drinks, I think Roethlisberger is like a very poorly made mixed drink that's like not even drinkable. Like you end up just dumping it out in the trash can or something. It just you can't do it.
Big Ben at this point is the PBR that's been left out for all night after the party, and you just take it into the shower anyway because you need to get rid of the hangover. That's Big Ben.
I think you have a problem.
It was some dark days in college, okay?
All right. Well, back to football. The flip side is we should mention that I feel like I've said this like about like half of the Bengals games. We should mention the Bengals played in this game. They it's interesting because I kind of felt like them and the Chargers were on kind of very similar wavelengths. Well, we saw them go in very different directions this week. The Bengals proved, I think, I'm willing to say it because I've been kind of hesitant. The Bengals are a playoff team. I think the Bengals are, to me, clearly a playoff team. Yes, it's just Pittsburgh, who I do think is really bad, but they blew them out. And I was worried that we'd see Zach Taylor sort of screw this up and, run the ball too many times. Well, he ran the ball too many times, and they had incredible success running the ball. I mean, they only threw the ball 24 times. Joe Mixon ran the ball 28 times by himself, but he had 165 yards and a pair of touchdowns in this. So their success rate was great. T. Higgins had an incredible touchdown in this one, which was very fun. So, and Joe Burrow, he didn't have to do a ton, but he did what was asked of him outside of that one interception. So, but Cincinnati Bengals are good. Just don't go up against Mike White. That's pretty much what it comes down to.
Yeah. I don't think they'll have a problem with that in the playoffs. Yeah, I mean,
Probably not. Yeah.
unless a massive 6-game winning streak's coming for the Jets. Look, I mean, I think they're a playoff team. I mean, we'll see how it plays out because there's still, 6 weeks left of football, and they're the 5 spot right now, 7-4, so they're in the driver's seat. But they're still, realistically, I know they just blew out the Steelers for a second time, but there's still 7 teams in the conversation. If you want to throw Miami, and there's still 8 teams in the conversation. So I think they're a playoff team, and I think they should be one of those best 7 teams. But we'll see at the end of the day.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure I'm ready to put Miami in the conversation, but we'll see. Let's go there. Why don't we? Let's use that as a segue. Let's talk about Panthers losing to the Mammals. Mammals will always beat the Panthers. Mammals, of course, are the Miami Dolphins. I know, I'm sure Luke Brown in the chat very pumped up. The Dolphins win 33-10. I guess here's the way I'll say this. What does this game to say more about? The Panthers or the Dolphins?
I mean, you got to give some credit to the Dolphins. They are at least winning these games. This was an impressive performance, I guess. They took the ball away from Carolina. They got down the field. They scored. They ran the ball pretty well, which is something they haven't done all season. I mean, they did fine running the ball. They threw the ball well. Tua was basically perfect in this game almost. And I think just overall, they played a really good, clean game. And they did exactly what they had to do because, you know what? Good and clean is exactly the opposite of what Carolina did in this game. So, that's all you need to do to win sometimes, and they won by a lot.
Yeah. Let's see. Another Dolphins fan very pumped up. I guess we have multiple diehard Dolphins fans here. So this was one, I thought, listen, the Dolphins are not a bad football team. And that's what we've seen these past few weeks. The Dolphins clearly have shown that, I think that they are better than maybe we gave them credit for early on. Like their defense, they still have a great secondary, and they've kind of been hurt. So that is an aspect of this. I also think that Cam Newton was really bad in this football game. I mean, his final stat line was 5 for 21, 92 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Like that's not helping you. He also had 3 carries for 5 yards and a touchdown. So like it helps when your team like completely neglected the quarterback position is now the team that you're playing against completely neglected the quarterback position and doesn't know what to do about it. I want to give Miami some credit. I think this is more of a Panthers bad game. But again, the Dolphins have had better wins this past winning stretch. And like, you're right, Tua has consistently started playing well. Tua's been good this season. It's funny because I remember thinking, like, why did everyone jump off the Tua bandwagon? Like, I think it was the Atlanta Falcons game. And it's like, well, he's actually playing all right now. Why are you starting to, like, Tua's played well. So there's a lot to like about Miami. I'm just not willing to buy them as like a playoff team just yet. I'm not. But, I've been lower on Miami all season long, so maybe we just value different things. What they have going for them is they play the Giants and the Jets the next 2 weeks, so they could easily end up 7-7 here in 2 weeks. But the difference is you got to win those games.
Yeah, I mean, you have to win, but you feel good about the momentum in this team. And, yeah, I mean, Tua's showing a good this is a good audition for the Houston Texans job next year. So that he's got that going for him. Yeah, I mean, the camp thing was kind of stuck. Like, it's just like everyone was excited for him to be back. And, even the numbers last week were kind of misleading. Like, I think last week I saw like their longest play might have been like 11 yards or something like that. And this week they had a little bit of a longer play, but at the same time, I mean, you can't go 5 for 21 and expect to last in the NFL. I mean, it kind of feels like it's over. The craziest thing I saw from this game is I saw Panthers fans calling for Matt Rule's head. And I was just like, he's on his 3rd quarterback who went 5 for 21 with 2 picks. What's he supposed to do? Which coach is having success in this team right now?
Yeah, I think the issue with the Panthers is the way today. I just haven't paid attention to the quarterback position. Although I would also say it's like the receivers aren't really getting open either. And that's another aspect. I mean, DJ Moore had a
Mhm.
great stat line, but like they need guys to get open more consistently. But maybe that's just Miami's secondary doing well. A couple chats. Didn't Jackson say 3-14 for the Fins all year? No, I never said that. I said they'd win 6 games, which isn't great, but that's at least better than 3-16. And also, Jackson, what do you have against the Dolphins? Never liked them.
Never liked the team.
That's it.
Now,
Clearly, what I'm doing by saying the Dolphins aren't a playoff team is a deep-seated hatred for the team that I am physically, I believe, at this point, closest to. Or at least, I think I'm still closer to the Buccaneers. But the second closest team I am is the Miami Dolphins. I hate them. It has nothing to do with that's how I actually feel about the Dolphins football team, the incredible 5-7 Miami Dolphins.
pretty weak color scheme. I mean, they got rid of the orange jerseys, honestly, and it hasn't been the same. I mean, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. We're still talking about this team, and they're still the 13th seed in the AFC. Like,
Hmm.
it's not like we're talking about the team that's like fifth seed. I think the
Hmm.
Bengals fans should be more upset about what I said compared to what Dolphins fans are saying. They're still 13th place in the AFC. So they still got some ground to make up. I think there is promise that you feel good about and say, hey, we're taking away from this. Um, but yeah, I mean, if we're talking about this game as a problem with the Panthers, I completely agree. They neglected the quarterback position. And it hasn't looked good this season. And I gotta say too, I think you said just this game it was a thing with the Dolphins secondary, but we got a lot of comments on our NFC South preview that DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson were a top 5 wide receiver group in the NFL.
Hmm.
They are not a top 5 receiver group in the NFL.
No.
This hasn't looked like the group that we expected. Now, granted, you also have to look at who's throwing them the ball, but like you said, they're struggling to get open in a lot of these games. And if you're a top 5 receiver group in the NFL, you're not struggling to get open against any team in the league. So I think we need to reset our expectations for what DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson are too.
Yeah, I think so as well. It's been a disappointing season for Carolina after starting off so hot. And, I guess, listen, hey, Dolphins, prove me wrong. I think they'll probably win their next 2 games. So who knows? We'll see what happens. Should be a fun rest of the stretch. Let's move on. Let's go to. So why don't we jump into, let's go here. Let's go Chargers Broncos because this was a surprise. Justin Herbert ends up with 300 yards in this one, but maybe not necessarily the best performance. A couple of picks, both to the same guy, being Patrick Surtain. One was kind of fluky. The other one, I don't know what happened. I need to see all 22 because it looked like it was just a horrendous throw. But again, I don't know. I didn't see what actually happened. So, I think that this was kind of one of those games where it's like the Broncos were able to run the ball somewhat effectively, but the Chargers just were not able to get much of anything going on offense.
Yeah, I mean the Broncos. Should we say beat them up? Is that the fair word to say in this game? It just seemed like that they kind of dominated the line of scrimmage and working back. I thought the secondary was really good in this game too. I mean, I thought everything about the Broncos outplayed the Chargers in this game, and this was 28-13. And I felt like it could have been 35-0 at points.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just, and Herbert kind of, I feel like things weren't going well early, and he almost played a bit too passive. Like, I felt like there was like
Mhm.
openings, and he just like wasn't throwing it, which was odd. I mean, the reality is Drew Lock threw 7 times in this game. Like, that should be enough to win you any football game. I mean, Drew Lock ends up with 4 for 7, 26 yards, and an interception. I'm joking a little. Drew Lock's not the worst quarterback in the world, but like, there's no excuse for a team that barely passed 150 yards to beat you if you're trying to be a playoff team. The Chargers were not able to get it done. But for Denver, maybe they still have these playoff aspirations. And again, if you're trying to say, hey, Aaron Rodgers, why don't you come over here next year? Well, this is a pretty good tryout for your team being successful with, in this game, not like outstanding quarterback play, although, at least some stuff solid with Teddy.
Yeah, somehow it seems like Vic Fangio is going to keep his job after all this, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
this team keeps battling and finding ways to win some of these games, and yeah, I mean, just like that, the Broncos are 6-5, so they're right there with the Chargers. I think it's going to be an interesting playoff race, and I think one of these two teams are going to make it. I don't think both teams are going to make it. Is that fair?
Probably. I mean, the weird thing about the AFC is it's so, and this happened last year. It's almost like, in basketball where we've had some seasons where like one conference is like completely loaded, where you look at, I mean, how many teams are successful, like how many teams are below 500 in the AFC? You have the Dolphins, the Jets, the Texans, and the Jaguars. That's it. Those are the four teams that have a losing record currently in the AFC. The other 12 all have a winning record. So it's just, or at least, they're at 500 or have a winning record. The Broncos themselves are a great example. If they're 6-5, they're a game out of the, if they win next week, they will be tied for a playoff spot, but also they're tied for last in their division. It's just an odd scenario that is going on with the AFC. So I have no idea. There's like literally a dozen teams that I feel like have a chance.
Yeah, I mean it's a really weird conference. We kind of figured out our hierarchy. I feel like in the NFC now, I feel
Hmm.
pretty comfortable about the 7 teams there.
Yeah.
The AFC is just on cocaine basically. I don't know what's going on here, and it seems like this is just all over the place. So I don't know how that's going to pan out.
Because here's the thing with the AFC. So, okay, Patriots and Bills, we feel like those are playoff teams, right? You have Kansas City, feel good about them. That's 3. Baltimore, feel good about them. That's 4. And even, you can throw Tennessee in. I would throw Tennessee in as well. So that's 5 teams that I feel like are good. I feel confident they'll be a playoffs team. Not that it's a lock, but I feel confident. Then you have 2 more spots that could go to the Chargers, the Raiders, the Broncos, the Browns, the Colts, or maybe even the Steelers, because their record still is a playoff contending record, although I don't think they'll get in, but like they're at least, if you believe that the Steelers are good, they could get in. It's such a wide open race. But for the Chargers, losing this game, it hurts. And for the Broncos, this is kind of one they had to win. So good for them.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. So this AFC West is fascinating, and the Bronco or the Chargers week to week, it's just like it just seems like the right team is just gonna demoralize this team, right?
What was that?
It just seems like the right scheme is going to demoralize the Chargers, right?
Yeah, they feel very matchup dependent. And again, worth mentioning, they're a head coach in their first year. Like typically, you don't make the playoffs of a head coach in your first year because it takes time to develop the personnel to fit a scheme. So it's a disappointing loss for the Chargers, and it's kind of one that I feel like you and I have been on a bit of. Like the Chargers are good, they're solid, but they do feel a year away.
Yep, I completely agree, and it showed in this game because I mean the Broncos are just kind of that veteran team right now, and they showed it.
Yeah, I think I agree. Let's move on. Let's go to how about another one where kind of a disappointing loss for a team. Let's go to Eagles Giants here. Jalen Hurts was not great in this one, Kyle.
No, it was not. This, I mean, disappointing. Disappointing, I guess, is just the perfect word for this game.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, they couldn't get stops when they really needed stops. At the end of the game, the Giants were able to move the ball at the end, and it just seemed like that whatever the Eagles were trying to do offensively, it didn't work. And we just seen team after team after team after team torch this Giants defense. And
Hmm.
you watch the Eagles look lifeless against it. Right as the Eagles were building momentum towards this playoff spot that everyone was thinking about, they just look completely lifeless in this game. This is a really bad loss, I feel like.
Yeah, this was tough. I mean, Jalen Hurts numbers 14 for 31, 129 yards, no touchdowns, 3 interceptions. But in fairness, the numbers don't tell the story. He was actually much worse. I thought that the passing was just not. It just wasn't there. And granted, he still had 77 yards through the ground on just 8 carries. Like he still does have that aspect of his game, which certainly helps. But I had this thought with Hurts, and he's a guy who I've at times really gone to bat for. But I had this thought where it's like, well, Jalen Hurts, when guys aren't really getting that open, that's when he struggles. It's like when guys are getting open consistently, that's when he has success. Can't you say that about like at least like 20 quarterbacks in the NFL?
Yeah,
Like
that's
probably
the thing. It's
25. It's like,
like,
go ahead.
oh no, I was just gonna say, I feel like we
Mhm.
say the same things about like Sam Darnold,
Yeah.
Jimmy Garoppolo, Baker Mayfield.
Hmm.
If you're in that tier of quarterback, then you probably don't have your answer at quarterback.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, the one thing I will say is like, okay, where do you add value? And what he has that those quarterbacks don't have is through the legs, like through the ground game. He can add value there. So like, so it's sort of similar. Like, I don't know if Lamar Jackson would be successful if guys aren't getting open consistently just through the air, but he runs the ball so amazingly that he can be literally an MVP. With Jalen Hurts, he's not that caliber of runner, but at least he does add value there. But it's just like, what's the upside with Hurts if when there's not much, even like there was stuff open. It's not like nothing was open. It just wasn't getting like wide open, and that's where he struggles. I just don't know where the ceiling is unless he can develop more as a passer.
yeah. So I guess the interesting thing is because this was kind of on my back burner. I saw glimpses of it because other games are on.
Mhm.
Just looking at this game and the numbers. We talked about the Eagles kind of zagging on the NFL and saying we're just going to have this run heavy team. Couple solid running backs. Jalen Hurts, obviously a good mobile quarterback. Should they just not plan on throwing the ball 30 times a game ever? Like, is that the
Mhm.
solution? Like, should they have like a 40-60 split almost towards the run?
Probably. I mean, like they still ran the ball effectively, and
Yeah.
so yeah, I would say like they need to, and it's weird because I think that the analytics say you got to throw the ball more, you got to want to be a passing team, but you have to play to your offensive strengths as well. You have to understand your personnel, and I do think that they should, as a whole, run the ball more effectively. And we also should mention, like, while we're putting all the blame on Hurts, there were some bad drops in this one as well. Jalen Rieger, probably the most obvious, were on that final drive where they're trying to, get into the end zone and score. He's like right at the 1 yard line. Maybe he would have gotten a touchdown and just drops the football. If he catches that, probably gets in and they win. It works case scenario. They can spike the ball with like 3 seconds left and, get one more shot to win it. So that happened as well. But yeah, I think really what this comes down to is, we talked about the Eagles and could they be a playoff team? And we talked about their easy schedule. But this is something I think this is a trap we always fall into as people that pay close attention to this stuff. Is we'll say, oh, this team has an easy schedule. But the problem is, like, if you're not that great of a team, you're going to lose to some bad teams also.
Yeah. Yeah, and that definitely showed in this game. So now they're at 5-7, and like I said, it just seems like that they're probably a tier below the playoff teams. They're probably
Mhm.
right on the cusp of it, but it just doesn't seem like they're going to be able to get there.
Yeah, that does seem like kind of like the ceiling for this team is, they get the 7 seed, but like totally don't deserve it and get crushed. And sort of similar like Chicago last year.
It's possible, but at the same time, like I I feel very confident after watching these teams once again of
Hmm.
my top seven. Like the top seven right now with the Vikings at 7, San Francisco at 6, Los Angeles at 5. I feel pretty confident those are the best 7 teams in the NFC.
I don't disagree, but sometimes,
Weird
like,
stuff does happen.
yeah.
Yes.
Hmm.
I mean, the Vikings are involved. Weird stuff is going to happen.
Well, I mean, what if Matt Stafford gets injured? Like
Yeah.
that's always a factor as well. So I think it's still possible. Let's move on. Let's go to why don't we go to a Thanksgiving game? How about the Raiders, Kyle? Raiders are back.
The Raiders are back. Right when we were ready to write them off, they come back and get a win. This was a
Mhm.
fun game in the fact that Derek Carr and Dak Prescott, I thought, put on a pretty good show in this game. Um, Unfortunately, the referees tried everything they could to limit that show as much as possible.
Mhm.
This was very annoying to watch. Every time Carr and Prescott had another big play on top of their
Mhm.
fantastic games, it just seemed like the refs were ready with the flags. They were ready to throw a flag at any moment's notice. I mean, I get the Cowboys argument that there were some of the biggest plays were against the Cowboys, but at the
Mhm.
same time, like I didn't really see it moving the needle one way or another, just from a general watching standpoint. Like both of them were pretty dumb penalties and pretty, I thought harsh penalties at times. And I thought it affected both teams pretty evenly and just how bad this officiating was.
How about this? I like this take. Ray Zuckerberg refs for MVP. There we go. That's something we haven't put in the MVP consideration yet. So I made a video about this where I went back and I just reviewed every single flag that was thrown and said, do I think that was the correct call or not the correct call? Which isn't exactly like reviewing the game because that would mean I watched every play and said, was there a flag here? Which I mean that would literally take like all day to make that, if not more than a day. Uh, but when I saw all the flags, the way I evaluated them, I believe there was 9 flags that I said I wouldn't have thrown. 5 of them I thought were just like straight up not penalties. 4 of them were, I think reasonable minds could differ, but I would say no. Uh, the way the point totals during given expected points on those plays due to the outcome of the flag, it gave the Raiders over an 8-point advantage throughout that game, which that's significant. Like that's a lot of points. That's the difference between Jared Goff and Tom Brady, 8 points in a single game. But the other aspect is that the Raiders, I thought, got hit with a really crucial penalty at a really crucial time, which was the center head bob, which I don't know why you called it a false start. It should have been a neutral zone infraction, which would have given the Raiders a first down, let them kill some more clock. So again, we can argue about who got screwed more, but the reality is they just need to stop calling so many flags. And you need to stop rewarding offenses for underthrowing passes. Unless it's Joe Flacco, stop calling that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And, I do take, with a grain of salt, the Cowboys were missing CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper, which is a big part of this team.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought it was a pretty good win overall for the Raiders, despite the flags. Carr was very good. And the biggest thing I took away from this game is finally it seems like they had this Henry Ruggs thing figured out. This lack of Henry Ruggs thing figured out. Deshaun Jackson, I mean, he did have 100 yards, but only 3 catches. But I just think what he's able to do for this offense, even if it's just for a limited time, added that much needed dimension, because it just felt like there was a ceiling on this team, because literally there was a ceiling to this offense that they couldn't move the ball downfield without Ruggs. Having a guy like Jackson in this offense helps tremendously. It helps Ryan Renfrow have a monster game. It helps Darren Waller get open underneath. It helps everything, I think, with this offense, having that one guy who can be a vertical threat.
Yeah, very, very fascinating stuff with the Deshaun Jackson of it all. I mean, speed matters a lot in that. I almost said speed kills. That would have not been great. But speed matters a lot in this offense. So, having a guy who's obviously one of the best deep threats of all time in Deshaun Jackson, that certainly helps. Yeah, for Dallas, I do think, hey, listen, you got some unfortunate breaks with the calls. I thought you also have you're playing a solid team in the Raiders who can go off, as we've seen, and your wide receivers were banged up. I would say, though, maybe it's still a bit of a disappointing performance by their defense.
I think so, and it's now that they had a good game, obviously, against the Falcons, who were missing a few guys themselves, and the Chiefs, who were still kind of in this weird funk. I don't know, like, I think this Dallas defense was hyped a little bit too much, that it was
Mm-hmm.
like all of a sudden way better. I think it's better than last year, but is it fair to say it just might just be marginally better and just be okay? But it's still like, if you're taking those 5 teams that we talked about before in the NFC, is it fair that if we're drafting defenses, this is my 5th pick for defense?
Probably. I'm trying to remember who the 5 are. So Arizona, I think you can make an argument because Arizona's run defense isn't great, but I wouldn't, because I think Arizona can cover very well. I think the Rams are better. I think the Packers are better. And I think give me a healthy Tampa Bay over a healthy Dallas, but I think probably give me a current Dallas over current Tampa Bay just because of the injuries.
Yeah, I think that's basically what I was going for too. But yeah, once Tampa's healthy, I feel like they're going to be fine.
And you could argue the same thing with Green Bay because they have their injuries. But yeah, uh, let's move on. Let's go to another game. Let's stick with some Thanksgiving. Let's go Bills Saints. Why don't we? Bills Saints. So the Bills played a really good game. I think they're back, kind of. Like, they still had those 2 sort of weird interceptions from Josh Allen. And this is, again, it's why you don't let anything deep down the field happen. And Josh Allen will screw up. Eventually, someone on this Bills offense will screw up. But the good outweighed the bad. And the flip side is, I mean, the Bills secondary did what it's done all year. It's looking like the Bills are back. Bills are great. And then we find out later on, Tre'Davious White out for the season, which is just such a massive blow to this team, I think.
Yeah, that really hurts because obviously, number 1 cornerback on the team, one of the best in football. That's a huge part of the defense. That's a huge hole to fill, and it's going to stink to not have him out there, because I think it's a huge part of this team. I still think they'll be pretty good, but I think it's gonna be interesting to see how much it's affected. Um, I think after all this, I finally figured out the Saints.
Okay.
I think they suck. Um,
Okay.
so I don't think this team's very good. I
Hmm.
think that they played well to start the year, but I think this basically gets down to what we said during our NFC South preview, was this team is very Alvin Kamara dependent. And
Hmm.
we've seen this team look bad the last few weeks without Alvin Kamara. And um, there's just nobody who can do anything on this team when he's not out there, right? Like when he's not out there, nobody is worried about the combination of Tony Jones Jr. and Ty Montgomery. Nobody is worried about these wide receivers. Like there's just nobody really to worry about with this team. And unfortunately, Sean Payton is brilliant, but he can't work miracles, and there's just not a miracle really to be had on this team. They really need Kamara back to really make a run at this playoff spot that they've now lost. I just don't think it's a very good team talent wise on offense whatsoever.
Yeah, but is that like a they suck thing, or is that just they got rattled by injuries? Because the Kamara thing, Jameis Winston getting hurt. They
Well, it's
also
one
have
injury for me. It's literally the one injury.
well, but I mean, you also have the fact like Michael Thomas like was on the roster. Like they thought he was going to be a part of their team this season. Like they went in with that expectation and it didn't work out. So like it's not just one injury.
Uh, yeah, but I mean, at the same time, but I do feel like that I'd be okay with this team at whoever's quarterback if Kamara's on the field.
Sure.
Honestly, like I just think that he plays that huge of a part of this offense. But at the
Hmm.
same time, like I just don't know if it's ever going to be like even if he does come back at this point, I don't know if they're going to be able to make up the ground. This team cannot find an open receiver to save its life.
But again, still, is that sucks though, or is that a really key player for your team got hurt? Like, if Tom Brady goes down, we're not going to say, oh, Tampa Bay sucks. We might say they suck now that they're hurt.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's fair to a certain extent, but at the same time, like it's kind of the thing I had about the Seahawks in the preseason. Like if
Hmm.
your offense is dependent on one player staying healthy for 17 games, it's probably not a very good game plan.
Yeah, no, I mean, for sure. Like they're an inconsistent team, is how I would phrase it. Like they have stuff they're good at, but they're not a complete football team.
Yeah. And I mean the schedule is, it's interesting to see this at the end of the season because they do have the Cowboys and Buccaneers, which probably puts them at 8 losses, which means I mean, I know they own the Buccaneers in the regular season,
Hmm.
but probably puts them at 8 losses.
Sure.
And there's basically no margin for error after that when it comes to the Jets, Dolphins, Panthers, and Falcons.
Yeah. Well, if the Bucks are going to win a Super Bowl, we have to lose to the Saints again. That's how it works.
Yeah, I mean, you should
Hmm.
just throw the game at this point.
I think so. Yeah. So I'll be rooting for the Saints in that one. That sounds gross. Rooting against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Yeah. Bills, good win for them. Hopefully that they can find a way to deal with the Tre'Davious White injury. Let's move on. Let's go to. So we have 3 games left. I guess let's talk Jets Texans here. So Zach
This game
Wilson
happened.
currently. What's that? Yeah, this one
That's
happened. Zach Wilson with his second career win in the NFL. He's 2-4 now. That's not the worst record in the world. Listen, this was an ugly game. I mean, this was not a fantastic game. Zach Wilson, very funny interception, throwing it off the back of his running back, getting picked. This was I thought he again. It's weird. He looks a little off on these plays. They're just constantly this like I've never seen anything like it where he'll make some really impressive throws and it's like checkdowns he just can't handle. Like checkdowns like the most difficult thing for him. It's like the backwards of the way you expect most quarterbacks to play.
Yeah, it was I mean, he's going to learn. He's going to have to be able to
Hmm.
make those throws to the last in the NFL. I think he's talented enough that he obviously figures it out. It's just going to take some time. Obviously, you want to see him go against a team like the Texans and be able to attack the defense a little more, but there are growing pains to it. Tyrod had an absolute dime in this game, and that was basically it. I don't
Hmm.
remember a single other play from this game other than Tyrod Taylor's touchdown pass.
All right. Well, yeah. I hear this. We have in the chat need that weekly Jets QB ranking. So what are you doing with the weekly Jets quarterback ranking now, Kyle?
Honestly, I think it's going to hold even for the week because Zach didn't do enough to move out of the 4 spot for me. So it's still going to
Okay.
be Josh Johnson 1.
Hmm.
Uh,
And Josh Johnson had a 2-point conversion touchdown in this one. So
yeah, he did. Josh
mhm.
Johnson 1. And then we got, did I have Mike White too? I think I had Mike White. No, I had Joe
I
Flacco
think
too.
Flacco too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I had Joe Flacco too. I'm still going to stick with Mike White 3, the Great White Hope. And then, unfortunately, Zach Wilson sticking at 4.
Yes. All right. Okay. Yeah. Good, okay, interesting list there, Kyle. Yeah, I don't know. This was the game. This happened. We have the chat. Jackson, number one quarterback in the draft. Zach Wilson, laughing, crying emoji. Yeah, listen, we can't all be Kyle, who knew that that Mac Jones was clearly the best quarterback to ever play football.
I mean, we all saw it coming. I mean, if we want to roll back the tapes and see everyone Mac Jones take from the offseason, I want to see everyone in this chat their
Right.
Mac Jones takes from the offseason and their quarterback rankings before we go after the Zach Wilson takes. So obviously, it's a growing process. I mean, you can easily pick highlights from Trevor Lawrence. We could pick highlights from all of
Mm.
these rookie quarterbacks and say, hey, this is a disaster. I mean, everyone's a fan of Justin Fields. Justin Fields has at times looked a lot worse than Zach Wilson in this season. So
Yeah.
let's calm down before judging anything.
Yeah. And again, I still keep going back to like the Titans game and like those highlights that we could have with Wilson. So the issue is, again, he's not a good quarterback today. Like, there's no denying today he has a lot of work to do. The hope is that he can improve. And again, that's kind of the logic behind that's the whole interesting conversation, I think, between a Mac Jones like prospect and a Zach Wilson like prospect. Is Mac Jones, he's already got the little stuff down, so he's already doing this stuff. Whereas Zach Wilson, you're like, okay, if you can just get this little stuff down, look at the athletic prowess we can have and this great, weapon we can have at quarterback, but you have to get that part down or you have a bust. So, we
Yeah.
knew he had the risk factor going in, and we'll see how it goes. Probably not this year, maybe not even next year, but we'll see how this goes.
Yeah. I think the one thing I took away, so this was a principal bet for me. I ended up betting this game because I thought the Texans ever getting points in an NFL game was disrespectful to the other team.
Mm-hmm.
And I came away with this thinking basically the same thing about these two teams. I think the Jets actually have players. Like, I think there's actual guys on this team.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's not like the Lions and Texans where I feel like they need like 20 starters. I think the problem is the Jets, I feel like, need like top end talent. They're going to need to add a few like stars to this roster to really like build it. But I do think that there's at least like, guys like John Franklin Myers, Quentin Williams obviously is very good. But there are guys on this team that I think have talent and are going to last in the NFL for a long time.
Yeah. Also, I see in the chat, Luke Brown says Jackson equals Zach Wilson apologist. So I was ready to get angry, but then I see a comment later just saying it's showing time. So, okay, you got me there, Luke. You definitely, that's a win for you. Let's move on. Let's get off this gross game. Couple gross games left. Falcons at Jaguars was a game that happened today.
Speaking of gross games.
Yes. Listen, it's not getting any better. If you're leaving now, follow us on Twitter, all that stuff. So the Falcons won this game. Cordero Patterson clearly means a lot to this offense. Apparently, maybe Cordero Patterson for MVP. I mean, with what we've seen him be able to do, and the reality is, so I did make I decided to. I finally did a gambling video. Where again, I've always kind of said it's like gambling's for fun. Don't do it to try to make money. Did go 4 for one of my picks. Falcons were one of my teams. I kind of felt like just the quarterback difference is still pretty prevalent. And like Matt Ryan did play well. Again, his numbers aren't going to look spectacular, and he missed a couple of throws ugly. But I thought that for the most part he played well. I thought Lawrence was fine as well, although again not great numbers. Just kind of an ugly game.
Yeah, I do think that it made a huge difference that Patterson was playing in this game. I thought they moved the ball a little bit to start the game, but then it kind of just stalled.
Mm-hmm.
Marvin Jones had an incredible catch. And I think the one thing you take away from this for the Jaguars is, once again, another game where it's like, I think Lawrence had some real flashes in this game. I thought he had some really good plays in this game, some good throws. There was still, a lot of things to clean up and a fair amount of bad. But I still thought there were some pretty good plays in this game from him that you can take away from going forward.
I have a take just looking at the box score.
Yes.
If Laquan Treadwell is ever your leading receiver, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, isn't that wild? Like we
Mm-hmm.
determined he was a bust like 6 years ago.
Uh-huh. And then
So
he's not just like getting playing time. It's like it was bad like for the Saints, like Kevin White's like becoming like a legitimate part of their offense. Like, hey, this is kind of like clearly things aren't working out the way you intended. Like he's LeGron Treadwell is their offense. Like that's not exactly what you want to have happen. For the Jaguars, James Robinson's really good. Again, James Robinson really making you wonder why in the world did they draft Travis Etienne, because he had 5 yards per carry in this one as well. So he's been running the ball effectively. And yeah, I think that you have an interesting thing where also Kyle Pitts didn't have a lot of numbers, but I think the attention he drew helped the offense go. So, you talk about team like the Jets having some players. These are two teams that I think the Falcons have some players. I think the Falcons are, but that's kind of always been the Falcons, right? Like they're not a bad team. They're just not like they're kind of stuck in mediocrity.
yeah, I mean, maybe slightly below mediocrity, but at the same time, yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
do think they have some players too. Um, but this is another team where I do feel like that they need a number of guys. So I think it's gonna, you know, it is gonna become a question: is it even worth keeping Matt Ryan's contract at this point?
Mm-hmm.
And I think Ryan's a good quarterback, and I think he could serve a good team. But like, if to add the players that you need, I don't know if it's worth keeping him around. It's tough to tell. Um, yeah, I mean the ETN pick, he could be awesome next year. It still doesn't make sense to me that they
Mm-hmm.
decided to do this. Like, I just don't know. They could have had Elijah Moore with this team, and I think Elijah Moore's done some good stuff this year. Obviously, I don't think he's not like a Jamar Chase level prospect at receiver, but
Mm-hmm.
you're literally going into the season with nothing. You have nothing, and you're just okay with it.
Yeah, it was. I mean, in fairness, like they did try. Like they added Marvin Jones, who as you mentioned, had a ridiculous catch in this one. So and they thought, I think again they had Laviska Shenault and DJ Chark, who we thought were going to be a good option, and it hasn't worked out. So I don't know if it's totally fair to say like they were just neglecting it as much as they just like didn't evaluate properly.
Yeah, I guess that's more fair. So
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's move on. One last gross game: Bears Lions. And Kyle, I have a bone to pick about this game. I am officially upset about this game. I am the one person who cares about the Lions taking on the Bears and losing by 2 points. So we, as we always do, did our weekly pick'em show, and I did fantastic. Out of the 7 games I was given, I get one incorrect. 6-1. Very good week. You don't do that great. You end up going 2-5 for your picks.
oh
Okay.
geez.
I lose my lock of the week on 1 point because the Bears had to cover 3 points. You hit your lock. So now we tied for this week because the Bears I picked, but they did not cover. So how is it possible? Our scoring system is flawed. If I can go 6-1, you can go 2-5, and we tie for the week.
Well, we can't change it now. uh Yeah, I mean, this was kind of weird. Like the funniest thing about this too was like the Bears weirdly kind of dominated this game, but won off
Hmm.
a game-winning field goal as time expired. It's
Right.
just like they could not score touchdowns in this game. It just seemed like it was like anytime they moved the ball consistently, it ended up in 3 points instead of 7 points. And it almost cost them the game, it seemed like in the end. But they got down into field goal range, hit the game winner. Um, I don't really have anything else to say besides that.
I mean, yeah, it was an ugly game. I mean, this was uh let's have this conversation because this is the conversation that's out there. Do we move the Lions from Thanksgiving games? Is that something we have to start considering?
I mean, if we didn't do it like 5 years ago, like at this point, like
Well, but 5 years ago they were at least like competent. Like with Stafford, they were at least like somewhat interesting, and you always had like they were like usually consistently mediocre at least for a good stretch.
yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know. I always just
Also, isn't
imagine
that isn't that sunk cost fallacy?
I just think at this point they need to be the early game. They need to be the 1 o'clock game, the 1 o'clock Eastern game. You fill up your plate, you socialize with family a little bit while the lines are on. You have it at the
Hmm.
corner of your eye, and then all of a sudden it's like real games are on. Okay, we're going to watch TV, um, and then maybe one day the lines will be good.
Yeah. I mean, that's the hope. It's just like, okay, a team can't be bad forever, right?
But the
I
Lions
don't
are
know.
trying.
Yeah, the Lions are pretty close. I don't know. I mean, it's just weird because like I feel like they picked the Bears because they know the Bears also aren't great. And this way, it wouldn't be like a complete blowout. Like I feel like that's the way that they're scheduling the Thanksgiving game. I don't know. I'm conflicted on it because typically I've always been of the mindset of don't care about tradition. What's more entertaining? It's a product. Do what's more entertaining for the product. But like I do kind of feel it's like, okay, what do the Lions have if we take this away from them?
Nothing. I mean, they have Dan Campbell.
I guess so. Yeah, they have Game Campbell. They're fine. What about this? How about this? You have to go 500. You go 500, you get Thanksgiving back.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like if you're going to take it from them, you have to take it from them permanently. But then again, who would you put on Thanksgiving?
What about 4 Thanksgiving games and you have the Lions game on while you have another game on?
You know, this is one thing that I think NBA does pretty well because they do their Christmas Day slate and they start from like noon all the way to 10:30, and they usually pick like the 2 worst West Coast teams on the Christmas slate for the 10:30 game. We should just start putting the Lions game at like 10:30 at night.
Yeah, I agree because everyone says like, oh, to put him into early games so that way you're eating. Like I almost never watch that night game live. All right, at that point, people are driving back or like you're actually going to do stuff. Like the games I pay the most attention to, it's always those first 2 games. At least that's how I am about it.
Yeah. Fly them out to Hawaii, start the game at like midnight Eastern.
Yeah.
And then, whoever actually is insane enough to stay up, can watch that game.
Yeah, I like this. Make the Lions play at 7 in the morning. How about that, Kyle? And here's how it works. So they already play at noon. You make it every time they have a bad season, they have to play on Thanksgiving an hour earlier, and just keep making it go earlier until they finally. You have a winning season. You're back at noon.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, I'm all for it.
All right. Yeah. We did not talk about this game at all. Let's get back to the game. I guess Matt Nagy saved his job. Maybe I do think there is some logic that he could have been out without this. Darnell Mooney has been really good this season. Like that's one of the bright spots of this team. And I thought Andy Dalton, I didn't think he was even that great, but his numbers were solid.
Yeah, I mean, I thought he was fine. And
he was Andy Dalton.
I'm with you on Mooney, especially like he didn't play this week, but the Allen Robinson thing's been weird, right? Like he just kind of dropped off.
Yeah.
So getting this guy in and he looks like he's a legit guy too. That could be a huge thing for this Bears offense going forward. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that. I feel like Dalton. I mean, Dalton looks better than Fields right now. So the question is, does Nagy play for his job and start Dalton, or does he do what's best for the Bears and plays Fields, or is that what's best for the Bears?
I think it is what's best for the Bears, but I don't know. I mean, one thing is they're playing the Cardinals and the Packers the next 2 weeks, so whoever they play, they're losing those games. So I guess it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I mean, here's an interesting question: would they have won with Fields in there? I think that's an interesting question. I don't know. I mean, listen, Fields did play well against the Lions the last time they played, so I think I would say. Probably, but again, it felt like they played better than only being up 2 points in this one to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I thought they played really well in this game. They moved the ball. They just didn't score touchdowns, and I thought they would have been fine. I don't know if Fields would have won this game though. I don't know if he gets that final drive.
Yeah, you might be right. I don't know. Also, we should have had Tim Boyle in this game, right? If we're gonna have a dumpster fire, go all the way.
Just make it even worse. Make it as worse as possible. I mean, I would have loved for Tim Boyle's primetime moment right here, Thanksgiving noon. He's going for it, man. But unfortunately, Goff was ready to go.
I think it was a good living room factoid to throw out that the Lions quarterback who played last week, his college stats. That was something to bring up, I think, in a lot of families' households.
I mean, it's the stuff of legends. I mean, he should get a 10-part documentary series. Forget Tom Brady.
No kidding. You can see kids. You can do anything you want, even be an NFL quarterback if you suck at being a quarterback.
There you go. It's all about perseverance.
Yes. All right. So that's our show. Kyle, we will be back at our normal time next week at 9 o'clock Eastern time. Let them know where they can find us before we head out.
Yeah, make sure to follow us on Twitter. That's at Jackson Kruger. Make sure to follow me at by Kyle Gronin, and then make sure to follow the account page at On the Sideline JK. That's at On the Sideline JK.
Yeah, and also there is an audio only version of this podcast. If you prefer that kind of stuff, check that out anywhere you get your podcast. That should be available. Kyle, any final thoughts before we head out?
Good week overall. What's the Monday night game? I feel like I'm in such a daze that I don't remember what's going on
Oh,
anymore.
it's a classic, Kyle. How could you forget the battle of the Washington-based teams? Seattle going up against Washington D.C. Two different Washingtons, but both kind of Washington.
Some balls and hawks in action. I like it. Um,
Mhm.
that should be fun. We'll see. Little Taylor Haneke action. Good for your Monday night.
Wait, he's the first guy you think about, not Russell Wilson?
Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. I
Okay, well, I
mean,
guess there you go.
I don't know. I'm weird. I don't know.
All right. Well,
Give me some
I think that's a
Heineke.
great way to end this show. Is of Kyle saying, "I'm weird. I don't know." Uh, I, you I think I'm going to change the outro. I think let's go back to the outro we had before. I think that "See you later, alligator." I'm not sure. I'm a huge fan of.
Well, it was fun while it lasted. We can
It
move
was
on from it though.
it was fun while it lasted. Okay. So again, thank you to everyone for listening or watching. We appreciate it. And of course, as always, see you later, alligator. I am a liar. Okay, goodbye.
Peace.